points, right? I think one argument that you made, obviously, is that government funds are not best used for this purpose. So one objection I've heard is the government throws away its money on all kinds of ineffective things. If they spend their money incentivizing, let's say, Apple to come to India, is that a bad thing?
So let me now give a better version of the PLI argument. Okay, there's a part of my heart that does not disagree. There's a part of my heart that grieves. Okay, so there is more wit in PLI than meets the eye. The argument is the Indian tax system is broken. Right. There is plenty of stupidity in the Indian tax system, and we're just refunding the monies to Apple that should never have been taken from them in any reasonable indirect tax system.
Right.
A, I agree. B, it bothers me. Why Apple? Why not everybody? And that takes me to C. Like, come on, you've had an overwhelming majority in the parliament and the ability to get legislation through the Lok Sabha. Why was it so difficult to fix those mistakes of tax policy and tax administration? So, I mean, I can even understand it as a 3-week, 6-week initiative to get things going. But if the government agrees that Indian indirect taxation is broken, and I do too, and I'm happy to discuss that at length. Right. By the way, Ila Patnaik is the one that has really opened my eyes that these are not second order issues, these are first order issues that fundamentally contaminate the ability of manufacturing to operate in India. I didn't know how deeply this stuff matters and how deeply this stuff is broken. Maybe we should discuss on another day. Ila and I are writing a paper on this. Okay? Love to do. But she's really woken up my eyes that this stuff is not second order, this stuff is first order. I used to think, say, look, basically we got our GST now, and in GST you get zero rating of exports now. So aren't we pretty much done? And only in the recent 2 years, Ila has carried me to a modified position that no, the list of mistakes of indirect taxation in India are first order, and they fundamentally frustrate a lot of globalized manufacturing from happening in India. And I've shifted positions in response to her arguments. And as I said, I'm in the process of building some paper with her. So if Apple comes along and says, like, look, this makes no sense at all, it is a nice temporizing move to say to them, yes, I'll refund it to you, even though it's not my law, meaning my law is stupid, but this is a special case and I'll refund it.
Right.
But it's been years. Yeah. So why would you do this indefinitely? I would think of this as 6 weeks. Right. I would say to Apple, I will gather the best public finance minds in India. I will get them to write a committee report on what has to be fixed in indirect taxation. I will put it through an FSLRC process to draft a high quality law, and I will enact the law, and until I enact the law, I will refund it to you. And if that was the game plan, again, in temporizing, I would buy a PLI thing. Where I'm unhappy is that this is just stabilized. It's been normalized that this will go on indefinitely. Tax policy in India will keep on being badly done. We will keep on having a failure of economics knowledge being brought to bear on tax policy.
Right. So slightly different dimension, right? I think it was initially very much sold as we have competitive disadvantages, not just tax policy, although again, I think I also need to learn about how that's more important. But the whole bunch of other things, right? Infra, logistics,
so again, in fairness to the PLI guys, that's not what they are refunding. So I've seen some calculations, they're just doing careful calculations around taxation.
Yeah.
Everything else, in my opinion, is fair and square. Right. So whenever people say that, but electricity in India is expensive, I say, but people in India are cheap. Okay. So beyond that, it is the zone of capitalism that every production question is some combination of land, labor, capital, enterprise. And it is for firms to choose that if I am in remote parts of Chandrapur district, what is optimal there in terms of the prices of land, labor, capital, enterprise and the logistics costs of moving there. And firms should choose, and firms should never complain that, but I'm finding the price of clean water is expensive. Fine, then don't do business there. Right? Then you got to figure out yourself. So there is an immense operational advantage in India, which is of cheap labor. And again, to the extent that government policy, namely labor law, is interfering with the ability of firms to do voluntary contracts with workers at lower prices. Right. It is the Indian law that needs to change. You should not be subsidizing the firm, you should be fixing the law. So we should be going to the root cause and solving
Remove
things.
the distortion, right?
You should remove the distortion.
Don't try and introduce another distortion on top of it.
But in fairness to what is being done as PLI, at least my understanding is it's only indirect tax calculations. The other things are not being paid for by subsidy.